Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, a.k.a. PD Beats.
Welcome to the Popternative podcast here on Blab. As always, I am your host, Peter Remoliotis, and on Twitter, I go as PD Beats. This is what I like to call Puck Talk. We're big fans of hockey on Popternative. This is a Puck Talk episode. 3 guests. We have a scout. We have some coaches. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to introduce the panel. First, I'm going to introduce the 2-time Popternative host guest. We have Marc Franche is back with us. Marc Franche is the head coach of the HEO Midget AAA Cumberland grads and assistant GM of the CCHL grads. Marc, welcome back to Popternative.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me, bud.
No problem. And then I'm really happy to have Tyler Fines with us, Coach Tyler Fines. He coaches the Brampton Thunder in the Canadian Women's Hockey League. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And we have a scout with Future Considerations Hockey. We have Daniel Deschenes with us. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pete.
No problem. So Marc, last time we had you on the show, we talked with, we had Kaylee Fracken in the NWHL, but we also had Ian Mendez, and we were talking about hockey. And, you were in the season with the playoffs were around the corner for the Cumberland grads. What has been new with you, and how's the offseason been so far?
We had our entry level draft for the Bantams, so I thought we did really well. We got ourselves a lot of big skilled bodies, so that's always it's good, maybe good in the short term, but in the long term too. Once they're ready to play junior in our small rink, and like we've been around, our coach Sylvain Favreau with the junior guys been recruiting and active. So we have our import camp starting next week in Rockland. So it's going to be a hectic but fun to get things going again for the next season.
Oh, really, really good. And Tyler, you have you were the coach of the year in the CWHL this year. So first of all, congratulations on that. That's quite the accomplishment.
No, appreciate it. It was a nice honor, and especially in your first year coaching women, and nice to be recognized. But again, winning the championship would have been a better trophy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I understand that it was like you said, it was your first year, and it was. But you guys had a really good team. You started kind of slow, and you kind of picked it up at the end of the season.
Yeah, they had a lot to learn. Obviously, buying into the system, I think, was first and foremost, and buying into my coach Kevin and I's philosophy, and they did that. And when we did a lot of video, a lot of preparation, and it ended up helping us win a lot of hockey games this year. And so we set a lot of team records, and we worked really hard, and a lot of that was to the girls and how hard they worked all year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Daniel Deschenes is a scout with Future Considerations Hockey. Daniel, would you tell us a little bit about Future Considerations Hockey and what specifically you do in terms of scouting for them?
Yeah, so we're a scouting service covering the NHL draft, and we put out a monthly top 30 rankings for the draft on our website. And then we're kind of in full swing. Our draft guide is almost near completion and ready to go. So we sell that through our website. Full 210 ranking, profiles on all players eligible, as well as a ton of different articles and a look into 2017 and 18. And then for my position with FC, I'm the Eastern Canada head scout, but mainly just cover Ontario, so the OHL, OJHL, CCHL, and then come over to Gatineau a little bit and watch Olympique. And so I have a couple guys that will send reports to me, and we'll compile our rankings and send them off to be with the collective group.
Right. No, absolutely. And, so Popternative and social media is a big part of Popternative. We always have to have it in there. And one thing I thought would be really interesting to talk about quickly is this episode is going to be strictly puck talk. I know it's not going to be all about social media like usual, but we got to start with a social media question. And I think it made me think because, Dad, you're a scout. Tyler, you've been around, you've been coaching hockey for a while. Mark, you've been coaching hockey for a while too. In your eyes, social media, in terms of, people being able to, create their own scout blogs and having more voices, can you see social media as a factor in terms of impacting or discovering new hockey players and kind of impacting rankings at all down the road? Because it's a new tool and there's a lot more, there's more, it's more available to discover people now with it. So Tyler, what do you think about this concept of, using digital media as like a scouting tool? Like we have more of we have a wider lens now of hockey from all around the world.
I think obviously from a coaching standpoint, being able to access any player's video and seeing them live is huge for any coach or scout, and to be able to make, predictions about kids and where they're going and see where they're at. Currently, video plays a big part in that. And honestly, if a player, just talking social media in general, you can tell a lot about a kid's character too if they've listened to the coaches about buying into the social media, what you can't post, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that'll catch up with you as a player. And Daniel, I'm sure being a scout, you run into that as well. Mark, obviously with your young guys trying to stay out of trouble, and it's a big part of it.
Yeah, and Mark, you had that famous tweet that we talked about last episode. We're going to talk about it again, where you were talking to some scouts, and there was a player that lost a scholarship because they looked at his social media, and that was a big hurdle in that player's career.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's self-promotion. So if it's just showing a lack of judgment, and it was just showing just a recurring theme with this guy, and they had committed to him. And then after that, the school came in and they said, oh yeah, we need to fill in a spot because we just decommitted a guy based on his social media presence. So again, it's the old, don't let 140 characters cost you $140,000.
Yeah, and Daniel, you scouting, going to get to Olympic games and seeing it, being online and seeing because the hockey Twitter community is a huge community. It's a really loyal community. Everyone's on there. Can you see this as do you think it's an issue? Do you think social media with athletes, or the way they use it, the way they don't use it, is an issue in your opinion, and a problem?
I think it can be. It's just knowing what to do and what not to do, right? And as the guys have mentioned, it's everything you post, and it's building your own brand. And if your brand is in a negative light, then no team is going to want to draft you or commit a scholarship to you. So it definitely has those negatives, and I think it's more just than what you tweet or the photo you post, anything you retweet, anything you're going to like. We saw the Stamkos thing blow up as well, but who you follow, and those are pretty big indicators of someone's character as well. And you just have to be careful with what you're doing online, because now everybody sees it.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I just want to talk about that a little bit because, like I said, social media is a big part of it. But, I want to talk strict puck talk with you guys. And, the NHL playoffs have been pretty intense, pretty amazing. That Tampa Bay Lightning Pittsburgh series, in my opinion, has really lived up to the expectations. I'm loving every minute of it. I'm noticing, though, you talked about the draft, and, I'm noticing, though, that the game has become a lot, like everyone's saying, oh yeah, you look at size. But the one thing that I've looked at, Tyler, is it's become a faster game, and speed is always going to be something that is going to be needed. Because we talked at the Gallo Awards about, certain players, and I said, there's some players that are kind of small, and you said if they could play, they could play. But what do you think about speed and some of these guys coming up that are big kids but really fast that are tearing it up?
There's no stat for speed. And I think the one thing with speed comes, you have to have vision. I mean, you can be the fastest guy on the ice, buzz up and down the wing, but if you're not if you're not playing smart, not playing with your head up and playing with good posture, I mean, it doesn't matter how fast you can go. You have to be able to create opportunities for yourself, create space, create time, and actually be creative depending on what type of player you are. If you're a good, if you're a goal scorer as a first, second line, you got to make sure that you're creative and you can put up points. And, if you're small but you're a third line, grinder, then you have to just play smart, play hard D, block a lot of shots, and just keep it simple for the most part.
Marc, what do you think about that? AHL Cumberland grads, went to the finals this year. You had some speedy guys in terms of Sebastian Rodriguez. You had, a smaller guy who was really, really fast. You had Roman Cannell. What do you think about that concept?
Yeah, like it's energy, whether you create it with size or with speed, whenever you get there, if you show up with bad intentions, if you use your speed, you can have a little bowling ball kind of guy, like a little ball of hate. If he generates enough speed, he can knock anybody off, especially if it gets physical in the playoffs. And again, like if you have both things are equal, you have one guy that both equally fast, and it's obvious that the bigger guy will, again, if all things are equal, one guy's 6 feet, the other guy's 6'4", hockey sense, speed and all that, like the bigger guy will eventually, win the battle. But again, you could see it over and over again, all the guys that are having a huge impact in the playoffs, like Pavelski this year, like the Tyler Johnson, like one guy after another, like they're not all these massive guys. They're just at the right place, right time, and playing with bad intentions all the time.
And you bring up Tyler Johnson and Daniel. One of the things I want, it's interesting that you brought up, and Marc, you said a little ball of hate, but Daniel and I went to see some of the Moncton, round 2 Gatineau Olympic versus the Moncton Wildcat games, and one player that was really looked at and was really disliked in Gatineau was Connor Garland, the Arizona Coyotes prospect who signed his entry-level contract. He is a 5'8" forward, but this guy has a lot of skill. But what I find really interesting, Daniel, and you can put your scout hat on right now, is this is a player that is, like Tyler said, speed is good, but you have to be creative and crafty. But this is a fast, smaller player who's very creative and very skilled.
Yeah, and it's not just that, too. He thinks the game really fast as well, right? Yeah. And he just processes everything, knows where he's got to go. And as a smaller guy too, he's got a bit of that mean side, so he can really get under his opponent's skins in the corner. And similar to Alex DeBrincat with Erie, and everyone thought that last year was a fluke because of McDavid, but he showed this year that it wasn't. But he'll be the first one to jump in on a guy who's 6'5" and make him more mad than anybody else. But just the way that they process the game, the way that they get to the dirty areas, they get to the front of the net. Some of these guys that are 6'5", 6'6", seem to be scared to get to the center of the ice. But these smaller guys have no fear in doing so. And I think that's what puts them ahead at the end of the day. It's their willingness to go anywhere and do anything that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And Tyler, you said that to me. If they could play, they could play, right? You're a strong advocate for if you could play, if you can make the plays, if you can get in there. Doesn't matter how tall, doesn't matter how short you are. You should have a spot. You should play, right?
Just look at Marner. It's not a fluke how talented this young man is, and he's not very big, but I mean he's got a heart of gold. He leads his team, and he's on pace to, obviously he's got one less game than a few, but he's on pace to break, the Memorial Cup points record. Now it helps obviously having Dvorak and Tkachuk on your line. There's no question, but but Marner is, skating with the kid and just seeing what he can do is incredible. I mean, he's all over the ice. He reminds me a lot of Patrick Kane, and again, Kane wasn't very big, and he was talked about the same way. So I see a lot of good in him, and he's the perfect example.
And Marc, I find it really interesting because the Cumberland grads in the midget AAA league this year had a very good team. But if you look at the stats, a lot of the offense came from 2 players, came from Sebastian Rodriguez, Roman Cannell. When you were coaching, how would you, if you looked at your stats and you see that these 2 guys are on, is there my question to you is, and like Roman Cannell is very small. He's not a big guy. But it's like, did you have were those like, did you ever look at the stats and be like, hey, those are like my guys type thing? Or was it kind of more of a, okay, I know these guys can, put puck in the net, but, you have to put them in there and get the depth in there as well. Like, how was that, looking at the players you had? And like Canada too, there's a lot of teams this year that had like the 3 or 4 guys that are scoring. And then, everyone else was kind of lower, had very good plus minus, but didn't get as much, the goals or the apples. So I just wanted to know about that a little bit.
Yeah, like we also had Alex Robert, who was
Robert as well.
Yeah, he was the 4th leading scorer behind those guys. So in the league, so he wound up getting drafted a year late by in the OHL by North Bay. So just goes to show you, if they're good enough, they're going to find you. But it just, like we get like, because it's development league, like we didn't really load up for Bear or didn't think like, okay, these guys were double or triple shifted or anything. But they got their opportunities, and at the end they got a little more like power play time. But at the end, it's a midget development league, and we kind of gave everybody a fair shake up until like the last 15 games of the year, and then after that we started breaking down and started putting those guys, the top 3 scorers out a bit more. But again, we were lucky enough to be pretty balanced, and it's mixing and matching with the younger kids gave them a chance to to see what they can do. And obviously it paid off because we wound up with 4 2000 kids getting drafted into the OHL this year.
Yeah, and Tyler, it's professional women's hockey, so it's a little bit different to what Marc's talking about with the Cumberland grads. But is there a similar mentality over there as well? Obviously you're going to have there are some players on the Thunder like Laura Fortino and Courtney and Birchie too, who have a lot of experience playing for Team Canada. But what's the mentality there? Is there kind of as a coach, when you have those terrific players that played international, what's the mentality in terms of using those players to their advantages, and also making sure the depth players get in there as well?
Just put them in positions to succeed. Just make sure that the players, know what they're good at. If you're playing national player, you're expected to have, an upper level skill set. But when you're a player that has played NCAA, but you're not in the national program, you don't get the elite training like you used to. So you focus in with them a little bit more on video and play into their strengths. And you get girls like Jess Jones who are just naturally unbelievable hockey players, but it's, she set, I don't know how many scoring records. I mean, she's just a natural goal scorer playing for our team when she was in college. And Candace Stiles, I mean, the difference is as well is, the men's Team Canada team is average height 6'2", and the Team Canada average height for the women is 5'8". It's just, it's who they are, and you just have to play to your skill sets. And if they can identify that, they can do anything. You just have to believe in them, and they will buy in.
You mentioned the NCAA, but it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because there's also some players in Canadian Women's Hockey League that have played CIS, which is, Canadian universities as well. And the one thing I've noticed about that, Dan, you could speak to this as well, is we've had, Carlos Verdi, who's now working the PR and digital media for the Ottawa UGG's hockey team. That is in my opinion, some of the most underrated hockey out there, because this is university hockey. Obviously, we're not in the States. We're not, NCAA, filling out, arenas all the time and having really, really good attendance and high skill. But you have to understand, these are players that played 3 or 4 years major junior hockey in the O or the W or the Q, and they're, going back to school. They weren't, maybe their careers are kind of, and they're not done, because a lot of people go to Europe, Daniel, as we talked about before, after they finish school. But it's kind of a new approach to their career. But these players are hungry. These players are amazing. Why do you think the CIS is, quote unquote, in my opinion, an underrated hockey product in this country?
I don't think there's a lot of exposure out there. I think that's the big thing, right? Even on campus, depending on your school, and most schools, there's not a big following, where as NCAA, they're going to pack the barn every night and put 5,000 people in, and the fans are going to be on their feet the entire time. And that's the part of the school culture. And I don't think that's fully built into Canadian universities yet. And I mean, I just finished 4 years at school, and it was only in the last year that there was really this hype around CIS basketball. And the hockey games, great teams, great players, as you mentioned, 4 or 5 year OHLers, Memorial Cup champions now playing CIS, and they'd fill the barn, people maybe once or twice a year. So it just have the marketing and the exposure around it is enough, and it'd be nice if there's games on TV, but you got to justify the cost on that too, right? Is there going to be enough people watching to put it on TV?
Yeah. Mark, what do you think about that? You know, me and you being in Ottawa, we had the Ottawa UGG starting up the program again, but the Carleton Ravens had a really, really good team this year. They went to compete for the University Cup this year as well. Fell short in triple overtime. That was a crazy game. But what do you think about that? You've been around hockey for a lot of years. That is an unbelievable that's some good hockey.
Well, you just look at the local kids that went back to go play there. You had Joey West, who broke the record for most games played by the Petes. So he was a 5-star general. He was there as an underage and overage. So he went back to play there. Another Boivin, who played in the Q for the Quebec Ramparts, and he came back and played as a 20-year-old for the Pembroke Lumber Kings. He went and play there. So you have all these guys. It's a who's who of the O and the Q. And, you know, and so they're now 20, or most cases 20, 21, 22. They're playing like they're that much smarter, and they've been around the block. So it's like, if you want to show kids how to play hockey, bring them to a game, at the Ravens Nest, or when they start up again on Ottawa U, because it's unbelievable hockey. It's like proof being they beat, who was it at the beginning of the year? First game of the year, Carleton played. They beat NCAA team. Can't remember, but they beat.
They played the age. They played Binghamton.
They beat Binghamton 1-0. So again, those are.
They played and they played Binghamton with Dreger in nets, who had a little bit with the injuries. Played for the Sens a little bit this year, and Tobias Lindbergh, before he got traded in the FNUF trade, he was there as well.
There's some NCAA teams that have got inner squads, like Clarkson's playing Carleton next year. Their calendar came out. But proof's in the pudding. Carleton played beat Binghamton 1-0. So again, it's just one game, but it's not like they got blown out 12-zip and they were chasing the puck all the time. So you're talking about guys that are signed pro contracts, and they're able to compete with them. So that says it all.
Yeah, and very quickly before I go to Tyler, Patrick Killeen, Daniel, who is the goalie for Carleton. This is a ECHL All-Star. He was drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is a player, in my opinion, that has to go pro or at least be looked at. Like, he is a unbelievable player. And, Brent Norris came over from, playing in University of Connecticut, playing with the Huskies over there. He came over. So it's just this blend of all kinds of hockey. And bang for your buck too. I know some of the games were like $10, $15 a pop. It's an amazing, not discovered market, in my opinion. But Tyler, you have experience. You work also in hockey recruiting as well. Have you talked to people at all about specific CIS hockey, and has that ever come up about it being a underrated resource for recruiting or scouting at the pro level?
You're going to find your mixed bag of players there. Like, I think the way that the people look at CIS, unfortunately, is it's failed OHL players, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They're great. They're fantastic. They're excellent hockey players, but they had their time. And so it's kind of like, okay, unless they're going to be looking back into them, there's only going to be one or two of them that are going to stand out amongst the crowd that people are going to bring down. But a lot of them go to NHL camps in their second or third year of CIS, whether it's a rookie camp, and get looked at by coast teams, SPHL teams, and then go that route, or go the European route, playing Italy, or playing Division 2 or Division 1 Sweden. So it just depends on the kid. That's the problem. But as from just hearing about it, I think people just, CIS just isn't very well thought of, especially just around this area. There's just so much minor midget in the OHL, and It just kind of unfortunately gets looked over. But there's some excellent hockey players and there's some excellent coaches as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, I also want to talk about, women's hockey because we're big fans of women's hockey here on Popternative. Haley Wickenheiser, the legendary, captain for Team Canada, 4 Olympic gold medals, was on the show last week. Tyler, we had this conversation about, the development of women's hockey, Canada, USA. It almost feels like it's going to be Canada, USA for a gold medal for like many, many more years to come. What do you think about the development as the global stage of women's hockey? And do you like some things about it? Do you think that, it's a product that obviously in other countries should be, paid attention to more? What do you think about that?
So I'm going to divert. I'm going to ask Marc and Daniel to answer because I think they will give it a better opinion. No, I'm swear, because I think they will give a better opinion of what I thought coming from the male side. Because what happens is that when you're not involved in female and women's hockey, you have an opinion on what you think is going on. And I think that obviously being kind of on the outs like I was, I'm still new compared to a lot of the coaches and the staff that are currently in women's hockey, especially at the minor level. It's, I'd like to get an outside, opinion from Marc and Daniel where I used to be, what they think about women's hockey if they've ever dealt with it before. Trust me, it'll make for better talk.
I personally love going to those games, like when Canada's in town and they're playing and there's the different women's games. I just think there's a lot of skill on display and they're playing with passion and they're playing with purpose every time. But I think there's that misconception that because there's no hitting, it's less physical. Because it's women, it's not as fast, it's not as competitive. But I definitely proved that wrong in games that I've seen. And I just helped out with the U18 Women's Worlds in St. Catharines. And while there is a lot of disparity between a bunch of teams, right, with your Sweden and then up to Canada, and Czech Republic, the Canadian and the U.S. teams, they won it every single time, and no matter the age or the gender, it was a great game to watch and a lot of skill on display. So I mean, personally, I like seeing those games, and I think that people need to pay more attention, but it's just going to come with time, unfortunately.
I've had the chance to go and start at the ground level with girls hockey. So I'm in my second year of coaching a novice, in this past year, Adam. So it's unbelievable. Like even at a younger age, the difference between teaching a female athlete and a male athlete, they are so much more focused, and attention to detail is unbelievable. So you get so much more done at the younger level. So you get 50 minutes of practice. You're not, herding cats like it is with young boys. And so just the attention to detail and the way I see they grasp hockey concepts a lot quicker than boys. So I've been and again, I haven't talked about high level. I'm talking about the little kids, and I've been to tournaments and I've watched some of the games that the junior 67s, the lady sends in our area. And when I've been out of town for tournaments, I always go peek in and see the midget. And you see the girls that are the scouts. You're not talking about in the NCAA. You're seeing the pro coaches there. You're seeing the NCAA guys like the big Wisconsin, like Boston, Harvard. You see all the big boys there, and they're handing out business cards. And you've got these women. And if it wasn't for the ponytails and some of them hanging out the back, with the cage, you can't tell. You've got these big mobile defensemen. You've got these agile, swift forwards. It's just it's refreshing that they have role models to look up to, like Fratton, like Haley Wickenheiser. Here locally we have Katie Weatherston, who does a whole bunch of hockey camps for girls only. So it's great that they have their own role models, and they don't have to look up to Sidney Crosby or Patty Kane and stuff like that. They have their own pro hockey models and Olympians,
Yeah. You can't divert anymore, Tyler. I need to know what you think about this right now.
Well, you know what, Mark's hit it right on the head, and when he talked about attention to detail, that was the first thing that I learned when I got there, is that my assistant coach, whenever we talk at the board or we do video, it's always eyes up. There's never anything else going on, and I always tell the males that I skate with is that if you ever want to learn how to practice correctly, come watch women's practice, whether it's pro or young. Again, you just watch them how they listen, and they always ask why. It's just one of those things that they need an answer. It's not just go do that. Well, why am I doing that? I need to know why I'm doing that. So for you to have credibility as a coach, I need an answer. Mm-hmm. And I really, and that was big for me. And that's actually helped me on the men's side, because now that I'm working with, with the players I work with here, obviously in the Toronto area, I always feel like I owe them an explanation whenever we're running a drill or a shooting drill or something like that about why we're doing it. And it's really helped on the training side. But the women are continuing to grow and get better. But I think obviously just from a training standpoint and from a talent standpoint, they're 5'7". They're 5'7", they're 5'8". I mean, that's unfortunately the norm, right? So, you have to take that into consideration. But they do work hard. And one thing I'm trying to do on my end is I'm trying to encourage them, though, to train like the men. And I think that's a major issue at the women's level that needs to be addressed. And if that happens, you're going to see a major improvement in overall skill level, and not just putting together 1% elite athlete. Maybe I'd like to see it jump up, that 5% of them become elite, battling in for those spots.
I think I know you're really, really passionate about this stuff, and we've spoken about it before. It's unbelievable how these girls play, and I really, really hope to see it grow more and more and more. And Marc, last time we were on, you mentioned we were on with Kaylee Fracken, and I really find the role model thing that you mentioned is really important, that these girls have role models, and the amazing players like Natalie Spooner, Laura Fortino, these all-star players are proof that if you work hard for women's hockey, that you could you can go far. You can have that gold medal, and you see it. And I work at it as well. I work with the Sensplex, and I see the women's league, but I see the play, like the young girls that are playing with the boys, and they're unbelievable. They're in there, and they're going for it. So I really, really, I bring it all up all the time. I'm really hoping that it continues to grow and get better and more exposure, because people need to talk about it more and watch it more, in my opinion.
Well, this year was a big thing for me. We had, I'd say, 7 of the best hockey games I've ever coached. Even winning the championship last year with my junior team was amazing feeling. But we had, a game where you're down 5-1, come back and win 8-7 in front of your home crowd. I mean, that doesn't happen every day. And they worked their butts off to try to win that game. And even the games that we played in the semifinals against Calgary, who ended up winning the entire championship, they were all close, and fans enjoyed it, and we ended up getting people back that were like, for $10, $15. I mean, better, we play on Sunday afternoons, come down, catch a game, and you can actually, bring your young daughters, even your young men out, and they are great role models, as Marc said. And I'm sure, from his past experience, I'm sure the girls that he's coaching want to see the Mary Philippines of the world, who is, by the way, one of the best hockey players out of men that I've seen play. She's got Sidney Crosby legs. She's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to wrap up this episode of Popternative. I thank you all for coming on the show. Daniel, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Any closing remarks?
Thanks for having me, guys. It was great to talk hockey. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And Marc, 2-timer, hopefully be a 3-timer eventually if you want to come back.
Yeah.
Door's always open.
As long as I get a gold jacket or something for a 3rd time.
Tyler, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, but I'm really happy we finally had you on the show.
No, looking forward to it, and we'll be back on for sure.
Well, this has been Popternative. This has been Puck Talk. Next week, we are back with Popternative, 8 p.m. start. We have a pretty cool hockey panel, but we have former NHLer Patrick O'Sullivan on the show, and we have Boston Blades forward Tara Watchorn's on the show as well, and the panel gets rounded off with TSN senior correspondent Gary Lawless. So that should be a really, really good episode next week. So thank you all for tuning in, and you can find out, you can watch previous episodes of Popternative on our YouTube page and our SoundCloud page. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.